Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's season 4, the 4th season. There were 3 seasons before it. I smell toast. Nah, it's a fun season. Sadly, it would be the last of the series as we know it before we would have to make adjustments due to real-world events. So in a way, this is the end of an era. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, so it's time to ask those 3 age-old questions. What worked? What failed? What candy-loving burger of the day will be curtailed? Let's spread our wings and soar through all the fun that is Season 4. Rhyming is hard, okay? It's an art. Archer has amnesia and thinks he's a middle-aged dad that has a burger shop called Bob's. Hang on. How can I talk about a very obvious reference to a show I haven't talked about on my channel before? Shameless plug time! Guess what, academics? New content alert! You can actually watch my Bob's Burgers Season 1 review right now. All you have to do is become a member of the YouTube channel or join the Patreon. With the smallest tier being $2 a month, gets you early videos, special updates, and so much more. Don't want to go through the hassle? Hey, I get it, don't you worry. The video will be up and out for everyone else a week later. I will never paywall a series review, just tempt you with some early viewing. So if you feel the need to toss a coin to your Witcher, feel free to check that one out today. Shameless plug aside, yeah, Archer is in Bob's Burgers when assassins come in and a very scared Linda gathers the kids. The funny part? Only Linda, played by John Roberts, actually has any lines, even though Kristen Schaal, who plays Louise, and Eugene Merman, who plays Jean, would guest star in the series for the season finale. So yeah, Archer is being hunted by the KGB as he grapples with not being able to remember anything, as Lana tries to force his memory back by taking him to a spa, and he gets placed in different situations to try and break him out of his funk. More KGB come after him and ruin Mallory's wedding to Ron Cadillac, her new beau and the biggest Cadillac dealer in the tri-state area. Wanna know something actually kind of touching? Ron is played by Ron Liebman, who was Jessica Walter's actual husband in 1983 until he passed in 2019. Ron's great. Love his delivery, and he just sounds natural as a car dealer. It's a fun episode that really kickstarts the whole season. Where last season we had a 3-parter that sort of waded back into the pool to make sure the temperature was right, this one cannonballs off the balcony and makes it in the deep end by a hair. It does everything you need an Archer premiere to do, and it shines because of it, even bringing back Barry and showing he's the reason the KGB could keep an eye on him, because he's effectively Brother Eye. Don't lie, I know you want to click over to the Bob's Burgers review, but stick with me now. Fugu and Riffs is a burger-flipping 9 out of 10 that never misses a beat and shows us why that comedy is such a classic. But don't lie, I know it's tempting, isn't it? I won't tell anyone if you go to see it and come back. Next slide! Archer doesn't think his old buddy has gone rogue and is determined to show he's innocent. Meanwhile, there's a new gun lockmaster by the name of Rodney who is responsible for making sure everyone uses their approved weapons properly. Archer checked out a bunch of weapons from Rodney when he said he was just taking a trank gun to catch his lemur. Turns out he was actually finding his friend and was going to help him out, blissfully unaware that his buddy is into him. Archer's friend, Lucas Troy, would be played by Justified's own Timothy Oliphant. He does a fantastic job. He's done voice acting before, and he's a great comedic actor who just shines as he hunts Cyril and Lana for Bloodsport. However, when Archer finds out that Lucas really is a bad guy who gets crushed by a tree and has a very harrowing deathbed confession that has the gang riding home in silence, he's forced to intervene. It's a lot. I don't know. Timothy Oliphant is great in it, but it feels like a season 1 or 2 episode more than a season 4. The office stuff with Rodney is a nice addition, but it also just kind of flounders. The episode isn't bad by any means, it's just not very memorable or honestly all that good. Like, I have seen it at least 3 times for this review alone, and every time it comes off just vapid and empty. I turn away from it and can't remember a thing like it's a frickin' weeping angel. It's perfectly serviceable and to the service of nothing. Honestly, I think it might be Rodney. The more I see Rodney in the season, the more I actually come to loathe Rodney. Rodney does nothing and is celebrated for doing nothing. He is a nothing character. The Wind Cries Mary is a howling 7 out of 10. Ray actually can't walk, and we follow a morning in his unmoving footsteps. And when Lana and Archer go on a mission without him, Krieger offers a proposition. He'll help Ray get robot legs. Lana, Cyril, and Archer have to deal with Mallory micromanaging their missions and giving Rodney a list of recommended weapons they don't want to follow. And it's great because throughout it shows that Ron is trying to convince Mallory that she does micromanage everything, and she needs to just take a minute, take a step back, and let her people work for her like he does at the dealership. The only problem is, it's not a dealership, it's a place that could have actual consequences on the real world, and you need someone that micromanages that stuff. And when Archer finds out that Ray could be a cyborg, he's determined to sneak weapons through the vents and take him out, even cooking himself alive by accident. Archer fired a rocket launcher indoors in a blast-proof room. He is not a bright man. But yeah, that's effectively the entire episode. Krieger and Pam operating on Ray to give him the ability to walk again, Ron convincing Mallory she worries too much and micromanages everything and she needs to take a minute for herself, and Archer doing something, I guess. It's just a way to hand-wave Ray being able to walk again, and you know what? They spent an entire episode on it, I'll say they earned it. I think the hand reattachment one is better with the back and forth between Krieger and Cyril, but this is still fine. Legs is a lot like The Wind Cries Mary. There's a lot going on, but it just feels like a bunch of noise. It might just be that I don't really like Rodney. He doesn't do much other than just being an annoying wall, and he's most prevalent in these two episodes. His greatest joke and payoff is literally when he's not there anymore. I don't know, it feels like he dragged both of these episodes down as a whole. If you like Rodney, let me know in the comments below, and so I can tell you that you're wrong. Legs is a hard-stepping 7 out of 10. Archer burns his passport and is stuck in Canada, and Ron decides to pick him up since he is already in the area for some reason. While they're heading home, a bunch of men open fire on the car, but they're not after Archer, they're after Ron. Turns out Ron isn't the most boring man on the planet Earth and actually used to steal cars with his crew till they all got captured, and he's been giving them money every 6 months as a means of paying them back for never rolling on him. Which is honestly a really noble thing for him to do. He could have just left them alone, but no, he chose that because they didn't rat on him, they deserve to be compensated, and he made sure his boys were taken care of. It doesn't seem like much, but that is an honor amongst thieves thing that Ron really shows he cares about. Well, sure enough, Fat Mike is the one sending the men after Ron, and they have to escape them and make sure Ron can get home to go to the opera with Mallory, while Lana tries to think of one nice thing Archer has done for anyone, which would be some surprising foreshadowing for later in the season. Midnight Ron is, Ron shining as an actual fleshed out character. It's like the man from Jupiter, except instead of Burt Reynolds, it's someone that's not just going to show up one time and then be mentioned offhand till he's replaced. I don't know. I like this episode more than the man from Jupiter just because it has a more overarching impact for everyone. And it's also just great to hear Ron. And the charm of Ron comes very much from Ron Liebman, who played him brilliantly. I mean, he adds such a great extra layer to him, and it is wonderful to hear him have a back and forth with his actual wife, Jessica Walter. This is an episode we absolutely needed going forward. We needed to see why everyone loves Ron, and we needed to see that Ron was a character worth loving. When we're first introduced to him, he's just there. He is just the Ron that everybody likes who sells Cadillacs. But now he has to earn his own way into Archer's heart and succeeds. Ron has character. Ron isn't the boring man that Mallory thinks he is. Just because he's not an international spy doesn't mean he doesn't have his own excitement. Midnight Ron is a high-speed 8 out of 10. It's Valentines! And Archer is absolutely miserable because everyone else has a date except for him. He decides to blow his whistle to ruin everything for everyone else when he finds Cyril and Lana just bent over, and does try and rekindle things with her by showing that he's matured. Katya calls Archer and he speeds off just for her to ask him to get Barry back because she has no idea where he is until Archer tells her that he's in space. So Katya begs Archer to help Barry. Archer actually agrees to help Barry so that when Barry gets back, Katya will see he's an absolute jerk and get back with Archer. And so Archer gets Krieger to help Barry rebuild his spaceship and get back home. Then Archer decides to edit Barry's recorded speech together to trick Katya because he's just that cool of a guy, and Krieger disobeys Archer's orders and actually gets Barry's ship working. Hey, look at that. Katya was manipulating Archer the entire time to get Barry's ship fixed to get him home, and she's the new head of the same KGB that she defected from. Whoa, it's something. It's just, This episode is fine. There's a lot of just noise. Archer seems like he's running from one idea to the next and then just back and forth, being just obnoxiously petty. It just gets kinda grating. While there is some big narrative developments, the episode as a whole struggles in my eyes. Like, sure, Barry gets back, but then you also have Katya just willfully betraying Archer. Just for what reason? He genuinely loved her. He genuinely would have gone for anything to get her taken care of. He was trying to make it work, trying to remarry her and be a good man. And then she just strings him along to get Barry back. Granted, how he acts with getting Barry back kind of proves that he's still immature in a lot of ways, but also, Barry took a spaceship up to space to kick his ass. So you can't blame one without blaming the other. They're just weird antagonists for each other. I don't know. This episode just felt like a lot of nothing. Fish's coupling is a not so romantic 6 out of 10. Archer, Ray, and Cyril are in Turkmenistan, and after their jeep gets stuck in a sand dune, they have to dig it out. Archer then proceeds to go to the bathroom and gets bit by a cobra, which causes him to start hallucinating. We see him remember being a lacrosse player and getting ready to be recruited before he was shot by a stalker named Ruth Ann Litzenberger. Now, if this is true and not just hallucination, that's a huge thing that would definitely shape who Archer is. The setting and the hallucinations just seem very sketchy though, so it may have just been a dream. We also find out why Archer and the gang are in Turkmenistan in the first place. They're there to blow up a gas pipeline. Wait, what? Remember Pipeline Fever, where Lana and Archer have to keep a pipeline in Louisiana safe? Well, now they start to wonder if maybe ISIS isn't always the good guys. Which, wow. Talk about something that has new framing nowadays. Ray and Cyril negotiate through a very broken language to get anti-venom, and Lana judges Mallory for, committing international crimes. Like, she's pretty justified in that reaction. Honestly, it's a really solid episode, and I enjoy when it's Ray, Cyril, and Archer on missions together, since it's a very unique dynamic that lets them all play off of each other in a lot of creative ways. And even though no one can remember a time Archer has helped them, and Cyril sees Archer as a bully, he and Ray do fight to get him healed, to get him the anti-venom they know he needs. Because even if they don't want to admit it, he has saved their lives before. Archer isn't perfect, but who could be in that position? I don't know. I really want to believe the lacrosse flashback is real. It adds an extra layer to his character, even how he refused to want to see it. If you were shot right before your world took off, of course you'd want to make sure you could never be hurt again. There's an odd freshness to Once Bitten. It feels cleansing in a way. I don't know. I look back on Once Bitten and it's genuinely one of the strongest episodes of the entire season and elevates the elements at play. Once Bitten is a highly venomous 9 out of 10. In order to make sure the Albanian ambassador is safe after a threat, Archer and the gang had to go undercover in acclaimed chef Lance Casteau's restaurant while they film a reality show. Lance Casteau would be played by the award-winning chef and food writer Anthony Bourdain. Like I said back in Season 1, a special guest has to bring a performance of the same or higher quality than the regular cast to really stand out, since each one is already a powerhouse in their own right. Anthony Bourdain is, to this day, one of the best guest stars the show has ever had. His delivery is natural, he performed with an incredible cadence, and you could see why the man was an auditory and written legend. You don't get world-renowned travel shows because people hate listening to you talk. And so yeah, Archer leads the kitchen and gets praised by Lance and starts to really feel like it's his calling, and oh no, look at that, the ambassador is poisoned and dead. Gee, I wonder who did it. What? It's Lance Casteau? I don't know. It's like Movie Star in Season 2. You can tell there's something up with him throughout the entire episode, and you know it isn't just he's an eccentric chef. Yeah, the KGB paid him off to poison the ambassador, and then when he's flying away with Barry and Katya, they dump him out of the helicopter. I don't know. The episode is fun enough that you don't care. Does it matter that it felt formulaic and like you'd seen it before? No, not really. You get to see Archer doing his thing in the kitchen. The jokes are still solid, and Cyril just keeps getting tortured throughout. Live and Let Dine is at its worst fine, and its best really solid. Not the best episode of the season, but definitely not a waste of time. Honestly, really take your time and watch it if you've been marathoning the series. Appreciate that 4 seasons in, the series has developed such a voice that sure, you can sort of predict what's going to happen, but that's because there's this air of realism to everything. There is no Hinden Peters or Roger the Aliens. I'm aware I'm saying this about a series where 2 cyborgs drop Anthony Bourdain out of a helicopter, but still, it's somewhat rooted in reality enough that anything more out there just wouldn't make a ton of sense. Live and Let Dine is a fine dining 8 out of 10. The episode actually opens with Mallory interrogating Cyril and Lana about an operation where they had to go to the border with Archer and capture a coyote named Moreno. Archer, seeing how gorgeous Moreno is, decides he'll do anything to sleep with her and sabotages the mission and even tries to help a car full of people cross the border to help Moreno out. Mercedes Moreno would be played by Carla Jimenez. She appears to be super kind with Archer at first, but as he's being airlifted out to a real hospital, it's revealed that they planned on seducing Archer to keep him and his team distracted to move an even bigger cartel shipment into the US as per their deal with Mallory. First a pipeline, then a border-crossing drug deal. ISIS is not the good guys anymore, and I do appreciate that they start realizing that more and more, especially with where the series goes next season. Coyote Lovely is an episode I feel you either really love, really hate, or are just completely and utterly numb to it. Personally, it's a numbing nothing episode to me. It just feels so predictable and like a season 1 or 2 filler episode, not something you get this deep into season 4. It feels like a true filler episode, and it's just so disappointing to see. It's not bad, it's just probably the weakest episode of the show so far. There's not really an obvious subversion or anything either. At least in Live and Let Dine, you had Anthony Bourdain chewing his lines like tripe, and here there's so many scenes that just drag for like 3 lines too many, which sounds like a petty gripe, but when it's happening 7 scenes in a row, it adds up to the point it feels like they had a basic idea and then kept finding ways to stretch it out for the full runtime. There hasn't been an episode of Archer yet I would say is categorically bad, and having watched to where I am now, I can say that stands true at least for another few seasons. But this is the closest the show has come to full-on mediocre. Any other episode, I don't usually pause, I don't step back, I can usually sit through the 20 minutes. Here, I was stopping at every 5 minutes, rewinding to make sure I got everything, realized I did get everything and I wasn't going crazy, and then the episode was over before I knew it with little to really say for it. Coyote Lovely is a middle-of-the-road 5 out of 10. Archer and Lana have to pose as a married couple in order to stop the North Korean government from purchasing uranium in a top-secret deal. They use Mallory's card for a honeymoon suite, and Pam puts it into Cyril's head that Archer and Lana are gonna bump it constantly on the mission, and wait, I feel like I've seen this before. This is just Scorpio again. Except this time, Cyril and the gang just go to spy on Archer and Lana. Archer's upset Lana gets team lead, and when Mallory finds out that Archer took her card, she gives Lana both his and her bonuses. When Archer and Lana get captured by the Koreans, Cyril runs in to save the day because he ultimately couldn't trust Lana and was just a few rooms away. Lana is understandably upset, and it seems to be that she's making this big mysterious decision which we'll get a payoff for at the end of the season. We also find out that sure enough, Krieger was the one trying to get rid of some uranium and was the one behind it all, going back to his arms dealing earlier in the season. I don't know, it's an important episode, but it's also Archer just being way too much. I'm all for this angry, almost rebellious Archer, but come on, he's been slipping on the effectiveness scale this season and doing worse and worse with each passing mission. You could even argue they haven't had a successful mission since back in Midnight Ron, and even that wasn't a real mission, it was just getting Ron home. Which just shows that things are starting to slip, which will be important. Like I said, Season 4 is about the future, but it's also about all the failures it takes to get to the future, and our future may not always be what we imagine it to be. Sometimes we are forced to grow up whether we want to or not. The Honeymooners is a highly radioactive 8 out of 10. You ever see Turner and Hooch, the Tom Hanks movie? I'm sorry. I forget my audience sometimes. You ever see the Disney Plus original series Turner and Hooch with Josh Peck? The one that got canceled after a season and they just straight up deleted it? Save your media, kids. Corporations won't. Not that I really think there's any media integrity to Turner and Hooch starring Josh Peck, but still. Lana and Archer are in Morocco to pick up their contact, and it's a dog with information stored in his collar. He's not a super smart talking dog or anything, just a heckin' good big boy that hates guns. They have to do their best to get him home, and Lana and Archer develop a respect for each other and the dog in the process. It's fine. It's another This Feels Like Filler episode, but who really cares? Honestly, the best part is that Pam wants to be a field agent and actually tests super high on all her exams, forcing Mallory to actually consider giving her a shot. That way, it's not actually filler. It's actual proper character growth that is actual proper development, and I'm glad we'll be getting a lot more focus on Pam as the series goes on. She and Cheryl aren't the Waldorf and Statler or C-3PO and R2 anymore. The Star Wars one probably works better since Tom Kane is going to be all over the show like a Pollock painting next season. She's grown as a character, and even if you haven't noticed it yet, ever since she and Archer slept together, they've actually started to really bond as friends. I don't know, this season has a lot of growing pains and this almost nervous energy to it. But it's still got great writing that makes this more than just a Turner and Hooch parody. There is still a reason why they do it. Un Chien Tangerine is a well-spiced 8 out of 10. Assassins disguised as a Swiss guard plan to take out the Pope, and Archer and the gang had to stop them by order of Cardinal Corelli, who would be played by the returning legend René Aubergenois. And so they go to the Vatican with the perfect doppelganger for the Pope, Woodhouse. Yeah, Woodhouse looks just like the Pope, so they try and switch them around. See, it's funny because René Aubergenois would know a thing or two about doppelgangers and shapeshifters. I'm not saying Deep Space Nine is good TV or anything, just that the Dominion War is really, really good. Pam actually goes with Lana and Archer to the Vatican to help out on one of her first field missions, while Lana tries to keep a handle on Woodhouse. Pam drops a mirror on the Pope, Archer thinks the Swiss Guard literally only fight with like halberds or something, and yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces. Turns out Cardinal Corelli actually hired ISIS and the Assassins because he was hoping ISIS would fail and he would be able to look like he did everything in his power to save the Pope from his fate. Remember at the beginning of the series when ISIS was one of the greatest spy agencies in the world and Archer was one of their best agents, and now they have a reputation of failure? This has been a steady decline, perfectly exemplified with this episode. Ironically, they actually succeed and save the Pope, but their reputation has never been lower. This season would be the last that George Coe would voice Woodhouse, being replaced by Tom Kane in the next season, as he would tragically pass. But he does do a brilliant job in the last Woodhouse-centered episode of the show, as both Woodhouse and the Pope. Though I do have to be honest and say that not even Tom Kane could do honor to Woodhouse's name. He's a wonderful actor who has done all kinds of beautiful things, but in Season 5 you really can tell it's not him anymore. The Papal Chase is a holier-than-thou 8 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. ISIS is hired by Cheryl's brother Cecil and his fiancée Tiffy, who would be played by Eugene Merman, aka Gene in Bob's Burgers, and Kristen Schaal, aka Louise. Bob's Burgers Season 1 review available now. I talk about Steven Crowder in it. That's right, the academic gets political. They hire ISIS to go to the Bermuda Triangle and save their sea lab from its deranged captain. Look, last season, the season finale just was not for me, dog. This season, I am all in. I don't care. See, the Sea Lab is run by a truly diabolical soul, Captain Murphy, played by the maddest man, Grimsburg himself, John Hamm. Talk about a beautiful tribute to Harry Goss. To not only bring back Captain Murphy, but to have John Hamm, one of the biggest names in television, voice him. I don't know, they didn't half-ass the reference and I genuinely appreciate that. The trip to the base mainly focuses on Cecil talking with everyone and learning that maybe Cheryl isn't mentally sound enough to be trusted with her finances because yeah, she is not mentally sound enough to handle her finances. Oh, and Pam is allergic to the food and keeps scarfing it down anyway. Part 1 ends with Captain Murphy threatening to fire off nerve gas-laced missiles and we find out that things are definitely not as they seem. Cecil is hemorrhaging money and the Sea Lab has become a very real threat. So it's up to Archer and the gang to go down there posing as a film crew to stop Captain Murphy. As a part 1, I love it. I think it maintains the pace while also getting all the characters to the scene of the action. Unlike Space Race, Sea Tunt is always jumping perspectives to keep that momentum as it climbs to the main conflict. It's a perfect example of how a part 1 should be written. So they stick the landing? Well, there's only one way to find out. Captain Murphy is real on board with stopping the destruction of the planet by any means necessary and wants to make sure people treat the environment better, and this is literally just Space Race but better. They go to interview Captain Murphy under the guise of getting his message out to more people and really want to find out where the missiles are to, save the world. They start the interview, Archer pulls a gun and fires and cracks one of the windows, and wow, the place is starting to flood. Is that a ticking clock I hear? Dramatic pacing? Development without Barry being shoehorned in at the last minute to actually give some amount of deeper conflict? This is spooky. They manage to make it to the flooded break room and something truly absolutely enchanting happens. Captain Murphy is crushed to death by a soda machine. Sadly, it is not Bebop Cola, but great googly moogly, that is some fine-ass attention to detail on that there reference. This feels like a two-parter that Adam Reed had wanted to make for a long time, and it shows. The writing is honestly some of the strongest of the entire season. As the break room floods, Ray, Cyril, Lana, and Archer discover there's only 3 wetsuits to make it to the DSV, and when Lana says she's pregnant, Archer offers to be the one that suffers cardiac arrest and temporarily drowns while everyone else lives. He doesn't force Cyril or Ray to give up their suits, and the moment Lana says that she's pregnant, he goes for it. And this is without him even knowing it's his kid. There's a reasonable expectation that it's not his, and that Lana is just pregnant. And he still wants to do right by her. He still wants to do right by a mom. He wants to make sure she's okay. And so Lana has to effectively carry Archer's corpse across until they can shock him back to life. Archer then proceeds to shock Ray, frying his legs, and Cecil gets stupid rich off the insurance on the C-Lab. C-Lab gets destroyed just one last time. It's baffling to me that 2 of the strongest episodes of the entire season are the season finale of all things. But yeah, it's easily the strongest writing, strongest performances, and even while you may not have realized it, there was build-up to one of the strongest conclusions the show has had yet. Lana was deciding who to get the sperm for her kid from, and yeah, spoilers, it's Archer. Yeah, I know a season early, but still, it stands. Sea Tunt is the end of the ISIS era, and in a lot of ways is a fitting send-off. You could walk away from the series with that last boop, and everyone at least has some kind of conclusion. Not a completely satisfying one, but most characters are in a much more developed place than they started. Now, do I think it should have ended here? Knowing what's in store for Season 5? Hot take, absolutely not. Sea Tunt is an Under the Sea 9 out of 10. And there we have it, that's Season 4! Anything you think I was right on? Wrong on? What was your favorite episode? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends. We're out here. Season 4 was definitely the weakest overall season of the bunch so far, but even at its lowest, it was still a fun adventure. There was never a moment where you felt like you were watching a completely different show all of a sudden. Sure, Archer regressed quite a bit in some episodes, but overall, it's really not that bad. It showed that 4 seasons in, we're still getting incredibly high-quality writing, outstanding voice acting, and just an overall solid product that has no reason to be as outstanding as it is. That being said, next season we're going to get something a little familiar and a whole lot different. It's time for Archer Vice, my babies. We're going to get the rise of an outlaw country superstar. Pam learns how to add even more magic into cupcakes, and we get 2 of the biggest series regular additions really any show has ever gotten. So I'll see you all next time when we go live with Season 5. Stay strong and keep fighting, and know that no matter how tough things get, I believe in you, and I'm proud of you. You're doing great. Goodbye, everybody.